The next session, which is the penultimate talk of the day, is the role of technology in content marketing. And to deliver that, we have Swapnil Srivastav, who's the VP of Ad Tech at Times Internet. Swapnil's previously worked at Motorola, Tribal Fusion, and of course was the founder and CEO of Vritti, which was in the smart education space before he joined Times Internet, where he now looks after the entire advertising technology platform. Swapnil. Speaking of technology, do remember that our Twitter hashtag is #CMSAsia 2015, 2015. Do continue tweeting over there and maybe even put in a question or two for our speakers so that we can use them in case we don't have any questions from the audience.
After a great, exciting session from Nikhil and Ashish, who's up for a little geek talk, guys? Come on. Gurgaon, are we ready? Come on. All right. Okay. Clicker. So I'm here to talk about the role of technology in content marketing. And just like the introduction, so I run ad tech at Times Internet. And we obviously been into the banner display world for the longest time. Last couple of years, I think, content marketing has just taken off. Obviously, that's why we're all here. And we've seen sort of just enormous amount of convergence coming from the whole display side of things and this new content/social. And I would like to just kind of start from that aspect, looking at how that convergence is playing out and what technology is done to the banner market. Maybe that gives us a clue of what's going to happen in content marketing. Just kind of before beginning that out, I want to just talk a little bit about what is it that's really going down under the hoods of all of this. And if you see the workflow of all of ad tech, and I'm talking search ads, content ads, banner ads, video, anything social, I think at the end of it all, it's really a campaign definition. I mean, you guys are all coming from that zone, so it's easy for you to get that. User data, which is sort of understanding what the user is and what the inventory is, and the end of it all, a smart recommendation engine. So if you see what technology has brought in the last almost a decade of ad tech, it's this smart recommendation engine, taking this stuff in and sort of churning out a data-driven ad to a consumer. So this smart recommendation is what technology is all about. And I think if we have to extrapolate how technology is going to play out on the content marketing side, it's very easy for us to look at how it's played out on the rest of the ad tech and make some of them sit there. So I'll just share sort of some of our views that we've seen past couple of years where we think the native is sort of winning the war on banner. I mean, it's a very bold statement, especially for people like us who've been living off the banner ad revenue for the most part of our existence. Last couple of years, and obviously a lot of you guys would, I'm sure, believe it. We've seen the native and the content ad space sort of taking over more and more of the ad revenue that's typically been coming from the banner space. I think one of the theories that we have internally I'd love to share is sort of how the placement of the native or content ad and the context of the native or the content ad. And I'm using native and content interchangeably because, and I'll speak about later, it's sort of a type of native is how we look at content ads. Let's talk about the placement. I think the banner blindness is sort of setting in a lot of, I think almost all the geos that we're working with. Consumers are starting to almost look at one stream on the page or the device. They're almost like, at a certain level, blocking out what's going on in the rest of the page, rest of the app, the rest of the site. They're sort of just looking at that in stream. So if you would see, all the leading publishers are sort of becoming that one single stream or maybe a two stream kind of a model and just moving away from that RHS, LHS, top banner, bottom banner, all of that. So there is a placement angle of it, where people are saying, hey, I want to basically go consume content, and there is sort of a stream of content that I'm sort of walking through. If there's an ad that happens to come in there, I'm happy to look. But if I've got to move it around, I mean, good luck with that. That's why you would see the, obviously Facebook started with the news feed. Even at the end of the page, content ads that everybody is sort of very excited about and making a lot of revenue for all publishers. In-stream native ads on mobile obviously is very big. So that's an angle around the placement of the ad where it is. And we think that's the future where things are trending, and we're happy to be a part of that. The other part is the context. And in that sense, I would say, if I was to classify, and I have a biased opinion, that almost all of the sites are content sites, let's say 80, 90% of them. So the content ad piece in the native is spot on in terms of the context. So I am consuming content, there's a content ad, I'm going to respond to that. The other types of native ads that are obviously very large and where we see a big convergence coming in, and incidentally a lot of spends are going, is obviously the app install ads, the product ads, and let's call it the general awareness ads, which is the standard banner sort of fitting into the native stream of things. Content stands out because it is contextually relevant to the site. I'm on a content stream, and I see a content ad. That makes total sense. The click-through rates on that is astronomical. We're tracking anywhere from a 200% lift to a 300% lift on content ads on our various other ad formats. However, there is a large spend that is happening on product ads. There's an enormously large spend that is happening on the general awareness ads. And there's a big spend on the app install ads. So there is a trend for that to sort of converge into content. And this is where our original thought process is, that we are probably looking at a big convergence happening in the ad tech industry. We are seeing a lot of, initially there used to be set of people working on the content marketing bit, and there would be people sort of working on the product ad bit of it, general awareness. They were all separate teams, sometimes even different agencies. We're seeing a big convergence, at least from a publisher standpoint. I think within this year, in 2015, we'll have major convergence on all of that. So in that sense, I think, native is becoming the next banner in some sense. And I'll elaborate. Just to kind of take that communication a little bit forward, because the core technologies and the platforms are the same, let's see how the ad tech evolution's taken place in the last decade. There used to be the 1.0 ad networks, and we were there in the Bay Area a long time back, and there was ad network was everything. And what was it exactly? It was automated ordering. You don't have to make 50 insertion orders between 50 people. You do it one time. There's basic optimization, basic mediation, basic targeting. And how has that evolved? It's evolved now, and I don't want to go into all the acronyms here and confuse you guys, but at a high level, what has happened is we have sort of broken down these various aspects of data, recommendation, inventory, optimization into various factors, and almost created a better ROI for the end consumer, and in the process, exploded the whole market so that you are now sort of looking at billions and billions of ad impressions going through this ecosystem. So something that was similar, and I'm just trying to make this analogy because I'm saying maybe at content marketing, we are at that 1.0 right now. The display ecosystem went from that to a sudden explosion, of course, over a decade, to something, in my estimate, close to 50 times larger market in a decade. And that was driven by technology. And that's where I think the content marketing is going to follow suit. So looking at content marketing space, given that background of ad tech evolution, what's happened in the display ad tech ecosystem in over a decade, there's every chance it might happen in like a year for our space, the content marketing space, because all the ecosystem players are already built up to do that. the tech stack's built up, the players are ready, they're already transacting on a certain format. If you really think about it, and this is sort of the big sort of thought process we have internally, at least at times, is it's really just a new ad format that we're trying to slap onto the old ecosystem. And if that was to happen, I mean, we might see the version 2.0 of content marketing hitting us this year. And that's the big excitement that we have around content marketing. And that's how we are sort of preparing ourselves as publishers. But we're also investing heavily on the tech stack, on sort of the larger ecosystem, working with you guys, the marketers, with agencies, to kind of figure out how we can be prepared if that explosion was to hit us in 2015. One of the key things that we think might hit it in a big way, because it's an easy evolution, is programmatic. Programmatic has been in the realms of not so premium publisher side of things in display. So programmatic usually means performance, means inventory that is not premium. I think in native it might do a reverse, because native is going to start from the premium side of things. So suddenly you may see native programmatic coming out where regular programmatic failed, which was to hit premium inventory. And that would bring in big marketing dollars from the brand, not just from the ROI advertisers. The other thing that is interesting and could have a big impact in terms of the explosion of the inventory available is moving away from those pure play end of page ads into the regular streams. So essentially we are seeing a lot of banners being converted to content ad formats across the industry globally, and we are up there as well. I think before this year ends, we would have almost quadrupled, if not more, the content inventory space from a few billion impressions to 4 times of that in India alone. So that's a massive inventory availability that will be available for you guys to sort of make use of. The other aspect that is happening is content. I mean, everybody's talked about, there are a lot of other panelists and speakers before me are better equipped to answer that question. But we are also seeing content generation explode. We are seeing scenarios where what used to be a regular banner is now becoming a story. And that's very powerful. That is creating an ecosystem of content generation and models around that are working closely with agencies and publishers to expand this market up for all of us. The other thing is user targeting, smart optimization, obviously. But it's a little geeky. We'll talk about that in just a bit. So how can technology truly disrupt 2015 in terms of content marketing if this was to play out? I mean, is content becoming the new banner? And banner is a multi-billion dollar ecosystem running today. Are we looking at a scenario where content becomes the new banner? A simple example, we got a Singapore Airlines banner. It says, well, great offer, Singapore Airlines fly to these destinations. And it's great. It's been making billions of dollars, these banners, for all of us for the past few years. We are happy about it. We'll keep the money. Now, there comes a content that says 10 great places to visit in the Southeast, courtesy Singapore Airlines, and there's like a 50 words to a 100-word article around it, and suddenly it's in the stream. What it is doing, it's very subtle change, but what it is doing is it is generating anywhere from 2 to 3x CTR as a publisher. So I'm getting paid more. The ROI for the advertiser is 2 to 3 times higher. It's suddenly far more effective for me to use that ad format now. It's possible that if the agencies and the advertisers in the programmatic community come along, and which seems like the case, that we may suddenly see that big shift of dollar spend from that display industry into native. And that's what essentially I think, summits like these are great for us to come together and understand how we can deal with that dollar spend if it was to come around to us. The other interesting observation or possibility that exists is technology is the new sales. We've grown up where, who you know is great and very important in this ecosystem. If you would see how the automated trading systems or the programmatic or in general the RTB world has been moving, 30% to 40% of all ad tech spends are now getting routed automatically. So this is the area where discovering a product or inventory is on your tablet, on your phone, on your desktop. It's no longer in the realms of whom you know, how you're associated with, what's your circle, what's the bar scene like in the evening. Getting to the dollars, if you're a publisher, is equally automated. If you are trying to optimize, it's a black box, and some of the big guys have created one. We created a smaller one, and happy to work with you. No longer dependent on a big ops team to manage that. So suddenly what is happening is technology is moving into areas such that it is, I would not use the word displacing, but it is definitely reinforcing what used to be in the realms of physical people, sales guys, ops guys, interacting, chatting, making things work. As a side effect, we were joking earlier that how it's displacing the good-looking folks in the ad industry with some of those not so well-dressed geeks. And of course, we joined this industry with that allure. It's a little sad development, but it's happening. The only irony is that we are making that happen as technologists. But I think if that was to play out at a large ecosystem level, what's going to happen is it will do that same explosion that technology did to display somewhere in 2005 to 2006, 7 timeframe. It took 10 years for that. It may happen in a year for us. So that's the upside. The other thing, which is actually very profound, and especially if you're a large publisher, it's an existential question, is data is the new inventory. I'm sure you guys, some of you guys would relate to that. I think in the old times you would say, I was part of an ad network a long time back, and people say, hey, I cracked this publisher. It's part of my network, period. I got this. Premium inventory, I'm the goddamn owner for this period of time. Now what's happening is 1 billion impressions of that publisher is sold, 1 impression at a time. It's no longer one publisher that you're getting. That inventory is available programmatically to hundreds of trading desks and RTBs and God knows what, and all those great acronyms that we've got. So what is replacing that? I guess when in the old days when you used to say, oh, I got that publisher, I got CNN, I got Economic Times, what you were trying to say is I really got that audience. I got that premium audience that now belongs to me exclusively for that period of time, and I can monetize that. I could go and pitch to my brands that audience. In other words, data. So more and more what is happening is people who are starting to own the data is quite equivalent to what used to be owning that inventory a long time ago. So for people like us, publishers, it's a big challenge because there is a chance of commoditization because inventory is no longer a solid block. It's 1 impression at a time and billions of it on a daily basis. So how do we hold to that data and create our premiumness, create a little circle of trust, if you will, amongst the agencies and say, hey, we still got it. That's becoming an interesting challenge. And people, I think, who own that data, people who own that audience and are able to keep it in that confine and present it in a way that you can demand premium will do great. And that's where sort of we are trying to hedge our bets. Publishers who cannot hold that are probably in a little bit of risk of commoditization. So let's look at this recommendation bit, and this is probably as geeky as I will get, thankfully. What is this smart recommendation like? So what is this content recommendation like? And I'm sure there are a lot of big players now. We will be shortly moving into that zone where we offer our own content marketing solution some point in time shortly. I just want to talk a little bit about what this smart recommendation is like and what does it actually mean. So I've just broken it down into sort of 6 input, if you will. So the biggest one probably is audience, like I said. So as Times Internet, we have something like 60,000 rules for what you browse, how you browse, all that stuff you do while you're on a site. We're sort of tagging you saying, hey, I think I know this guy. Every piece of that data is collated. So we have around close to 100 million users that we have tagged in the Indian ecosystem alone over the past few months. We know everything about their browsing behavior, and hence we try to bucket them into some sort of an audience set. That's a big input to this recommendation engine. Which site you're on, obviously, contextual. When you're reading that site, the ad you want to see is the more related to the site, better it is. So that's contextual. Social, viral, so trends on, if you give me content, you want to run a content ad, how relevant or how viral that article is today on, let's say, Facebook, what sort of hashtags are running on Twitter that sort of relate to that content is very important as input. So something that's trending right now, chances are that people are interested in reading that. So that's a big input to this recommendation engine. And I think, and again, I don't want to say that we are the only ones building this. There are all the big guys have it, all the people who've invested the money behind it. Popularity, big input. So if you put an article out, the more people are clicking on it, I'm tracking that out. I'm saying, okay, shit, this stuff is hot. I mean, it doesn't matter what your context is, what your audience is. That stuff people are reading. So we're putting that out as popularity. I'll leave the collaborative filtering because we're too heavy for late afternoon. Ad history, if you've seen the content enough and you've not shown interest, we need to know about that. How many times you serve that ad up in a day or a week. I think that's all tracked. So that's all ad history. This stuff all goes into building this bit. And so every time someone says, oh, I've built a great ad stack, I've raised $100 million to build it out, this stuff is what they're building. So essentially, this is sort of the nuts and bolts of the real meat of that investment in ad tech that people are making. Obviously, and unfortunately, most of these investments have happened outside our country. It's a little bit sad. If you see Indian ecosystem in terms of ad tech, I think we are probably the biggest spenders on ad tech investment per se across all the publishers, if you lead out Google, Facebook, and Twitter, and 3-4 of them. But most of this innovation has sort of come in from Israel, from US, from Europe, and we've sort of built our systems over that. So this is actually one of the first times that we built this ecosystem right from scratch, right here in our good old NCR. And we're very excited to sort of roll this out as time comes along. But this is really the meat of all of the technology that you keep hearing. The rest is all plumbing. So you create plumbing to connect to sites and advertisers and agencies, and all that stuff is good, but this is the real jazz. A couple of other things that I think technology has a big impact is cross-device. I mean, we're moving in a direction where I think everybody is on multiple devices, even right now. I mean, you got probably 3 devices on an average between you guys. It's getting hard. For people designing the tech from ground up, and almost all the content marketing technology companies are facing that because none of them are Google and Facebook right now, which have logged in user. The problem is, when I show you an ad a few times on one device and you go to the other device, I don't necessarily know who you are. And that's creating a big inefficient sort of smartness in that ecosystem that we're trying to solve. Logged in publishers, Google, Facebooks and all obviously got the big advantage because they know who you are. People like us have a slightly harder time because most of our user base is not logged in, and I think that's a common problem in all the content marketing companies, technology companies that are facing. I think, like I said, that this is an age where the ad tech is going to converge. Content marketing from becoming a silo somewhere this year or next will become mainstream. It'll quadruple or grow 10 times in terms of business, in terms of inventory. Obviously, the big guys will jump into it as well. And when that happens, these subtle differences between knowing your consumer across all devices versus knowing your consumer in silos of devices will become very acute. I think this may also trigger a lot of collaboration between publishers to kind of counter that cross-device problem that everybody's facing. Love to sort of explore that out with our fellow guys. The recommendation engines are dependent on today what we are, and sorry for the heavy term, probabilistic cross-device technologies, which basically means I'm going to guess if you're the same guy. So you're on a device and you go to the other device, I figure out, oh, your home IP is this, I'm going to make a guess it's you. This is against when you knew that you are the same guy because you logged in with your user ID. Those technologies have not been so stable and have been given some pain to people like us who are trying to sort of model this out. But it remains to be seen how this cross-device angle plays out. But I just thought that's an interesting thing to know. Publisher roadmap, interesting to say the least. Like I said, inventory and data are getting interchanged. Data is a new inventory, so what that means to publisher, we put the inventory out and you guys get access to all of that. There's a threat of us becoming commoditized, like I mentioned earlier. There is a very couple of interesting terms. The walled garden is one of them. You must have seen all these Ad Age and Ad Exchanger articles where the big guys are saying, hey, you can't come in. You can't take my data. So you go to a Google network, you go to a Facebook network, even you come to our network in the domestic side, we can't let you take our data out. And how you take the data out is sort of geeky, to say the least, but there are ways through programmatic that you can take that out. So we're blocking that out. So all the publishers are saying, I will block it out. The moment you say, I block it out, you lose revenue. So there is sort of a growing question of, do you need to make a lot of revenue today, or do you want to stay relevant in future? So that's, at a high level, from a published perspective, a lot of dilemma that is going on at the revenue meetings. Not so evident to the agency side or the marketing side, but I think it's a big question area that all the publishers are facing. How do you divide premium inventory to network inventory and so on? A lot of sort of interesting questions are being asked in those meetings. I think that is how the content marketing ecosystem is going to shape out based on how those decisions are made. And I think the agency side and the marketer side have a big stake to participate in that thought process, collaborate with the publishers, and sort of come out with something that can really help this market grow. From a marketer's side, how do we see? I mean, we have limited visibility, so we'll just make guesses. Like I said, you need to hire a lot of those geeks, well-dressed or not, and embrace technology, invest in analytics, get those guys, churn those reports, get your data into your ecosystem. I know there's a lot of investment in DMPs and all of that stuff that can get really hairy to understand. But I think somewhere down the line, people who are not making those investments right today stand to lose out on the larger battle when it hits you. The other stuff that, obviously, like I said, the content bit is, in our opinion, set to explode and become mainstream. So that will mean instead of having a small symposium here, our good friends can do a 10 times bigger symposium by next year. I mean, that's a possibility. How do you guys get prepared for that? How do you guys get your content ready for that? How do you guys get your ad stack ready for that? I think those are some very interesting areas, and people who are well prepared for it can work with publishers who are looking forward to it. So when we are opening our inventory in a massive way and quadrupling that native content ad spot for you, are you willing to consume it? Are you capable to consume it? Because it's a mutual benefit situation. If you can consume it, only then it makes sense for us to open it up. So a lot of interesting stuff is going to happen. I think the end of page ad units moving to all over the sites, replacing AdSense, replacing the banners, getting into native, it's a huge, huge opportunity. It's just tremendously large opportunity for someone to pass it by today. It's sort of, I mean, I'm almost reminded of the old SEM days where people said, hey, if you got those search keywords, you're gold. I mean, spend all the money that you can, as long as per click is somewhere in control. Spend all the money, and then whatever is left, then you go out and do the rest. Now think if content marketing as SEM plus, where we are saying there is infinite inventory, so infinite access to users, and you can get to the premium sort. So it's not just the search on the right-hand side, it's like the homepage of Times of India, it's the homepage of Economic Times. If you get access to all that premium inventory, if you get access to unlimited amount of audience, with that level of pinpoint accuracy and ROI that SEM used to provide, I think it's something unimaginable that can happen over the next couple of years. So I think that sort of is like the roadmap that I think a publisher and marketer needs to figure out how to even deal with it. I mean, personally, we're very excited to sort of, work with all of you guys and figure out how we can make the most of this opportunity coming out. And obviously, there's been all the leading brands. I mean, all the leading content marketing technologies have proven the point. I mean, in 2 years, they've done some amazing job. Just the evangelization bit of it, just the opening the market bit of it, just about talking to all the regular brands, bringing them on board, tremendous, and hats off to them. But I think there is a lot more space to grow. I just want to, I mean, before going too detail into all of this stuff, I mean, just to kind of throw it out there, where to see how this will expand out. I'm just listing down a few categories that we are starting to work in terms of content marketing, and these are early days for us. But you'll be amazed at all of these categories have nothing to do with what a typical content marketing's, that zone has been for the most part. These are completely new categories. They've spent all their money on banners, on innovations, on product ads, on SEM, never on content marketing. And these are live examples of clients who are sort of looking very aggressively. We're doing some early pilots and things like that. And I mean, obviously, if you just go through that list, you will see that this is sort of the big enchilada, the big ad spend that's going to hit us, available for us to sort of work against. So I just want to end here and just sort of congratulate you guys on the tremendous job done in sort of exploring and evangelizing this whole space. I think the only thing I could say is that we got to figure it out as to how do we hit 2015 and 16 and get this big opportunity capitalized. Thank you.